If you dig the twisted, admire the outlandish, and are enamored by the unusual, you're in the right place. True crime, the supernatural, the unexplained, now you're speaking our language. If you agree, join us as we dive into the darker side. You know, because it's more fun over here. Welcome to Total Conundrum.
Warning, some listeners may find the following content disturbing. Listener discretion is advised. Ha 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 ha.
Hey, Tracy, how's it going?
Hey, Jeremy. Good. How are you?
I'm good.
Well, we don't have any good adventure stories this time, but we do have a couple adventures planned in the future.
Yeah.
So we'll be excited to share those with you once we get those booked and go.
Yeah, you betcha, you know.
So today our case is out of Minnesota. So I thought I would pick on Minnesota a little bit since we're from here and we can do that. And I thought I would tell a couple funny Minnesota jokes.
Potentially funny.
Potentially funny. So I'm going to start with a little one about Ole and Sven. Ole and Sven die in a snowmobiling accident, drunker than skunks, and they go to hell. The devil observes that they're really enjoying themselves. He says to them, "Doesn't the heat and smoke bother you?" Ole replies, "Well, you know, we're from the northern Minnesota, the land of snow and ice, and we're just happy for the chance to warm up a little bit, don't you know?" The devil decides that these two aren't miserable enough, so he turns up the heat even more. When he returns to the room of the two from Minnesota, the devil finds them in light jackets, hats, grilling walleye, and drinking beer. The devil is astonished and exclaims, "Everyone down here is in misery, and you two seem to be enjoying yourself." Sven replies, "Well, don't you know, we don't get much warm weather up there in the falls, so we've just got to have a fish fry when the weather is this nice." The devil is absolutely furious. He can hardly see straight. Finally, he comes up with an answer. The two love the heat because they've been cold all their lives, so the devil decides to turn off the heat in hell. The next morning, the temperature is 60 below. Icicles are hanging everywhere, and people are shivering so bad that they're unable to wail, moan, or even gnash their teeth. The devil smiles and heads for the room with Ole and Sven. He gets there and he finds them back in their parkas, bomber hats, and mittens. They're all jumping up and down, cheering, yelling, and screaming like madmen. The devil is dumbfounded. "I don't understand. When I turn up the heat, you're happy. Now that it's freezing cold, you're still happy. What's wrong with you two?" They both look at the devil in surprise and say, "Well, don't you know, if hell is froze over, that must mean the Vikings won the Super Bowl."
That's a good one.
Oh, I've got just a couple more little Minnesota jokes.
I got one too.
Oh, you do?
Yeah. So the Minnesota Vikings walk into a bar to watch the Super Bowl.
That was one that I had too. Which state serves the smallest soft drinks?
Minnesota.
Yes.
You're looking at the same page I am.
No, that's not fair.
In Minnesota, it gets cold. You can eat soft serve directly from the udder.
Why do all the trees in Wisconsin lean west?
Minnesota sucks. Okay.
Okay, that's good. I had to do the Sven and Ole one, though, because you really got to bring out that Minnesota accent there, don't you know?
That's a long one.
It was a long one. So today, like I said, we have a case out of Minnesota. And unfortunately, it's a sad case. Have you ever heard of the Katie Poirier case?
I've heard of it, but I don't know much about it.
Don't know much about it. It was a pretty big case when this all happened. Very sad case. Some laws were made because of it. which is good, but it's too bad that, some of these laws couldn't have been put into place first. I think I am going to just jump into it unless you have anything else.
No, I'm ready.
All right.
Let's do it.
So like I said, this is the case of Katie Poirier. 19-year-old Katie Elizabeth Poirier lived in a small town of Moose Lake, Minnesota. Moose Lake was a tiny town with a population of 2,200 in 1999. It was a town that was small in size but large in heart, which is a lot of small town Minnesota. Katie was a college student studying law enforcement with dreams of becoming a conservation officer. She excelled academically and she had a passion for music. In fact, she was even named first runner-up in the Miss Barnum beauty contest. Katie's love for the outdoors was evident as she enjoyed activities like fishing, water skiing, and cheering for the Green Bay Packers. I don't agree with that choice, but we'll give her a pass on that. Our arch rivals. She was also a fan of soap operas, Days of Our Lives. The good old days. I miss soaps. I don't think there's many on anymore.
I wouldn't know.
You never watched any of them?
Well, I've seen them because my mom used to watch them.
I used to hate when I'd come home from school and I'd want to watch cartoons. My mom would always be like, nope. She could be laying on the couch with her eyes closed, sleeping. And we would go up and change the dial on the TV and she'd be like, no, I'm listening to that. But then,
I gotta know who's gonna die this episode.
But as I got older, I started to enjoy them. And I remember watching them all those years with her. Anyway, so her love extended to animals as well. She cherished her 2 dogs, Goldie and Riley. Katie's kind and beautiful nature radiated both inside and out, leaving a lasting impact on those who knew her. Katie had her whole life ahead of her, filled with promising opportunities. Besides excelling in college, she was engaged to her longtime boyfriend, Mark, and they had big plans to move and settle down in Montana. It was a future filled with hope, love, and dreams waiting to be realized. On May 26, 1999, Memorial Weekend, a customer from the Conoco gas station in Moose Lake, Minnesota, called the local police department. During the call, they explained they're at the Conoco on the outskirts of town, and the store appears to be open, for the doors are unlocked and all the lights are on, but there does not appear to be an employee manning the store. He stated that there were people in there shopping, but no one was there to assist them. To give you an idea of where this gas station was, Moose Lake is right off of 35W. Or I guess it's not even 35W at this point. It's just 35 north, I believe, isn't it?
Interstate 35?
Yeah. So it's just very small town, kind of out in the middle of nowhere. This gas station is right off of the freeway, kind of by itself, nothing else around it. And so it's very secluded. There is a subway that adjoins the gas station, so you can walk from in the gas station to the subway. But other than that, there's nothing else around this. So they're really out there in the middle of nowhere.
It's better than nothing.
It is better, but just to kind
of long, cold cut.
You can get it while you're working.
Oh.
Because this is such a small town, the responding officer was familiar with the gas station's employees, including Katie. Earlier that evening, he had seen her working at the gas station, a place he often checked on to ensure everything was okay. Katie seemed her usual cheerful self. Nothing appeared to be out of the ordinary. Upon arriving at the gas station in response to the call, the officer encountered customers who had been waiting for over 20 minutes, yet there was still no sign of Katie. Worried about her well-being, the officer checked the back of the store to make sure she wasn't hurt or unconscious. However, she was nowhere to be found. They soon realized that she must have been gone for quite some time, as they found money and notes left behind by customers who had visited the store earlier that evening.
You know what I'm picturing when I picture the Moose Lake Police Department? It's like Bullwinkle.
Bullwinkle, Rocky and Bullwinkle.
Yeah, a cop in his uniform walking in with big antlers on his head. Moose Lake.
Moose Lake. My dad was actually born in Moose Lake, but I don't think I've ever I've driven past it on the freeway, but I don't think I've ever been to the town of Moose Lake. Have you?
I don't know if I have either, but is that where they do all the agates?
The agates,
stuff?
yep.
Oh, okay.
Agates are very popular there. I believe, is it, well, I should know this because of my maiden name, but there's something Cook State Park or something up there too, I believe. Is it, what is the name of it? I can't think of it right now. Everybody from Minnesota is just screaming at me.
Yeah, probably. But I can't remember either. So, but I remember.
It's a pretty big state park and campground and stuff up in that area. The police had strong reason to believe that Katie didn't leave on her own. All of her personal belongings, like her purse, car keys, sunglasses, were all still inside the store, and her car was found untouched in the parking lot. Moreover, the gas station was located too far from any businesses or residential areas for her to have just simply walked away. It was situated on the outskirts of town next to the freeway, like I said before. The unusual circumstances surrounding Katie's disappearance deepened the mystery and raised concerns about her safety. Inside the store, there was no signs of struggle or any indication that something had gone wrong. It was as if Katie had simply vanished.
So this gas station had no cameras or anything?
We'll get to it. The officer thoroughly searched her car in the parking lot.
With his antlers.
With his antlers. But unfortunately, there was no clues to where she was. He even checked the nearby truck stop, but Katie was nowhere to be found. The officer, being familiar with Katie, was certain that she wouldn't just leave her job without notifying someone. Her sudden disappearance was deeply concerning, leaving the police and the community puzzled and worried about her well-being. The police then proceeded to Katie's apartment, where her fiancé Mark answered the door. He was shocked to learn that she was missing. During the questioning, Mark expressed his complete confusion and had no clue where she could be or why anybody would take her. Everyone who knew Katie attested to the fact that she had no enemies, making her sudden disappearance all the more baffling and senseless.
So it must be Mark.
You'd think. I mean, usually they go to the husbands or boyfriends But the concern for Katie's safety grew as hours passed without any sign of her. As investigators continued their work at the scene, they noticed surveillance cameras positioned inside the convenience store. So there answers your question.
They didn't figure that out right away?
I guess not.
That'd have been the first thing I would ask.
The antlers might have gotten in the way.
Probably. Probably trying to get through the door and...
Mama says knock you out.
Moose Lake.
Covering various areas of the premises, recognizing the potential significance of these recordings, they immediately contacted the manager to retrieve these tapes. While waiting for the tapes to arrive, they meticulously processed the scene for any additional clues. In their examination, it revealed that the last transaction that Katie made at the cash register was at 11:30 p.m., providing a crucial time frame for her activities that night. They also attempted to collect fingerprints from the gas station, which, yes, I can see why you would do that, but this is a gas station and...
Yeah, there's going to be fingerprints
everywhere. But they did determine that there was too many fingerprints and too many people had touched various surfaces, which
would make sense.
It does, but I give them an A for effort. So tensions heightened as they waited for the surveillance tapes, hoping they could shed some light on Katie's sudden disappearance and provide vital clues to her whereabouts. The investigators remained committed to leaving no stone unturned in their quest to find Katie and uncover the truth behind her puzzling disappearance. The police carefully examined the grainy surveillance footage, hoping it would reveal some critical details about the man who appeared in the store around 11:30 p.m.
What year was this?
You would have to ask me that.
I
gotta
all the
go
good
back.
Questions.
99.
99. So, yeah. So camera systems were definitely not to the quality that they are now.
No, not even close. But I was actually shocked that they had, for that time frame, having cameras was a pretty good.
Yeah, I mean, even back in like the 80s and stuff, I mean, there was quite a bit of surveillance at gas stations, mostly because of drive-offs and stuff like that, but in-store theft, stuff like that.
Right.
So, not shocked.
Right. So the police carefully examined the grainy surveillance footage, hoping it would reveal some critical details about the man who appeared at the store around 11:30 p.m. Despite the poor quality of the images and lack of audio, they could observe the man walking around the store, seemingly engaged in a friendly conversation with Katie. His identity is still elusive due to the video's limitations. However, their concern heightened when they saw the man return to the store, walking directly to the back where Katie was, and the subsequent footage showed the two emerging from the back area, but something was terribly wrong. A cord appeared to be wrapped around Katie's neck, and the man was leading her from behind, tightly holding on to her neck. In distress, Katie's hands were also on her neck, as if desperately trying to loosen the cord or seeking relief.
So did they have any kind of description of this perpetrator?
They do. That will come up here. Unfortunately, it is so grainy that it is really hard to tell much about the guy. I mean, they can't even really tell what he's wearing because this footage is so bad. But we will get to...
What about like a estimation of height? Because probably could get that from... estimating like whatever he's walking by.
Correct. I guess they don't really talk about his height necessarily, but they do take a couple actions to try to get the footage cleaned up a little bit so they can see a little bit better, which we'll get to here shortly. Great question, though. The investigators were stunned and alarmed by this chilling turn of events. The surveillance footage raised urgent questions about Katie's safety and the identity of the man responsible for this horrifying act. The urgency to identify the man and find Katie intensified as they knew time was of the essence in solving this disturbing and perplexing. Words are hard. Perplexing case. Words are really hard. Realizing the gravity of the situation and the need for specialized assistance, the chief of police wasted no time. He called upon the expertise of two major investigative agencies, the FBI and the Minnesota Bureau of...
Ooh, calling out the big guns.
Yep. He called in Minnesota Bureau of Criminal Apprehension as well, the MBCA. So I'm really proud of this guy realizing...
taking the initiative.
Yeah, hey, this is too much for our little town. We just don't have the resources for this, and we need...
Or the speed. I mean, again, with the antlers, he's bouncing off of everything.
It's slowing him down. But Rocky can fly. Does he have his little sidekick, Rocky?
Maybe that's like their detective dogs.
What was the Russian couple? Natasha
and...
Boris?
Boris, yeah.
Yeah, that's right. I loved that show. So recognizing that finding Katie's safety would require an extensive and coordinated effort, he sought all of the manpower and resources available to him.
So let me ask you one more question.
Yeah.
So what time did the cop get to the scene?
So the last time that they showed... any transaction was around 11:26 p.m.
What time did the cop show up for the first time?
It doesn't give an exact time, but I'm guessing it was about an hour later or so.
Okay.
Because they had a stack of receipts, or not receipts, but notes and money from very honest people that had been at the store. And then when that call was placed, some of the customers had been waiting over 20 minutes. So I'm going to guess it was probably about an hour, but I did not find an exact reporting
about 1,
time.
2 in the morning?
I would say, yeah, probably around 11 or 12:30, 1 o'clock, yeah.
So between 2 and 2.5 hours?
Approximately, yeah. The involvement of the FBI and the MBCA brought in a team of seasoned investigators with diverse skills and access to advanced technology. Their collective knowledge and experience would prove invaluable in uncovering leads, analyzing evidence, and searching for clues leading to Katie's whereabouts. The officer, who was familiar with Katie, took up the difficult task of personally informing her parents about the distressing news of her kidnapping. Upon hearing the devastating news, Pam and Steve were overwhelmed with the shock and fear of their daughter's safety. They shared the heartbreaking information with Katie's 21-year-old brother, Patrick, who described feeling numb, and it was as if he had lost all sense of hearing. Patrick stayed at home, clinging to the hope that Katie might reach out or return, or in case they received a ransom call or anything. The family was united in their anguish and uncertainty, desperately hoping for any sign or communication that could offer some comfort during this distressing time. As they dealt with the painful unknown, they relied on each other's support and the presence of their loved ones to become a source of strength amidst this ordeal. I could not imagine being a parent receiving that kind of news. That would be my worst nightmare.
I think it's everybody's
worst nightmare. I could not imagine the panic,
the shock,
the unknowing.
Yeah, I couldn't imagine it either. I mean, that would be the most horrific thing in the world.
But it was good that they had the wherewithal to think of, to leave Patrick at home. I mean, I'm sure he probably protested, but it was good for them to leave him there just in case somebody did try to reach out.
Right.
So despite the agonizing days that passed since Katie's abduction, her parents held on to hope, passionately believing that their daughter was still alive. Steve, her father, said, "You cope with hope because hope is all you have."
It's all you got.
You can't say it any better than that. They wholeheartedly supported the ongoing efforts of the police, participated in the searches and fielding calls on the tip line. Their desperation to find Katie led them to make emotional media appearances, directly pleading with the kidnapper to release her safely. The outpouring of support from their community was overwhelming, with the countless people rallying around the family. Friends, neighbors, and even strangers came together, offering their assistance and support in any way they could. The family home became a hub of activity, always filled with people willing to help. At times, there was so many volunteers that Katie's brother Patrick remembers sleeping on the kitchen floor to make space for everyone. And when this was going on, people from all over the nation were coming and helping in these searches for Katie. It was a huge story, and it was devastating.
Yeah, I heard that too. People were coming from all over Minnesota to
all over the place, all over the U.S. Days turned into weeks as the search continued. Katie's story captured the nation's attention, becoming a headline on the national news. The family's dedication to finding Katie never wavered. They sought every possible avenue to raise awareness about her disappearance. They even set up a booth at the state fair, hoping that by getting Katie's image in the right hands or sparking a memory, they might receive a crucial lead to bring her home. And doing something like that, I know the Minnesota State Fair, the Great Minnesota Get-Together, is a huge event. I don't know if every state does that or not, but I know the Minnesota State Fair is something that people flock to and look forward to all year long.
Yeah, I think most states have them.
Do they? I've never been to another state fair. I barely go to the one here because I can't stand all the people. I love the concept of it. There's just way too many people.
Yeah, it's a busy place, that's for sure. You got to pick your days.
You definitely do. I turned against it back when Dylan, our son, used to do 4-H, and he would be there for a couple weeks at a time, and I'd have to bring Maddie there in the stroller, and people would use you as the, breakthrough in the crowd because you were slow because you had the stroller and all the electrical cords, and I was like, yeah, I'm not doing this anymore. I should try it again now that we don't have one in the stroller. But it's been that long since I've been there. It's crazy. So the search for Katie intensified as massive teams scoured the area, with the local church lending a helping hand in managing calls and coordinating efforts. In a beautiful show of solidarity, gold and maroon ribbons were being distributed for people to wear in support of Katie. So the passing out of the ribbons kind of triggered something for me to kind of go down a little bit of a rabbit hole.
Okay.
I was wondering where the whole ribbon thing began.
I'm not sure, but when you said the colors, the first thing I thought of was the Gophers.
The Gophers.
So maybe she was planning on going to the U of M, or
I'm thinking it maybe was their
maybe
or their
that's
school
their
colors, because that was my high school colors, was gold and maroon.
Okay, I mean that makes sense too. So.
Right. So do you remember the song "Tie a Yellow Ribbon Around the Old Oak Tree"?
Oh yeah.
That's where the ribbon thing first came from.
What do you mean?
Like with breast cancer awareness and AIDS awareness, and how everybody wears like the pinned ribbons on their shirts or whatever.
Yeah.
That whole ribbon pinning thing started back from that song, "Tie a Yellow Ribbon Around the Old Oak Tree."
Yeah.
It's something sparked off. That was like the first time that anybody had ever used like ribbons to symbolize something.
Strange, but
Yeah, so I thought it was kind of cool. I always wondered where that kind of started from.
I just thought it was a song.
I did too. I didn't realize that there was a bunch of meaning behind it.
Tie a yellow ribbon round the old oak tree.
Now I can't remember the rest of it.
Dun, dun, dun.
Do you still want me?
Good song.
It is a good song. The overwhelming support from the community and beyond deeply touched Katie's family, and they expressed with their heartfelt gratitude to everyone involved in the search. Katie's mother, Pam, was quoted as saying, "The words thank you just don't seem enough to give you, but we do. We do thank you for all of your efforts," and Katie does too. The search efforts were comprehensive, involving specially trained dogs and helicopters to cover vast areas. Volunteers bravely ventured into thick brush, conducting meticulous grid searches to leave no stone unturned. Numerous agencies collaborated, and comprehensive volunteers nationwide joined the mission to find Katie. Everybody was looking for Katie. To raise awareness about Katie's disappearance, people proudly wore buttons adorned with her face, and her missing persons flyer was widely distributed through newspapers and billboards. Every possible avenue was explored in the relentless pursuit of bringing Katie home safely.
So at this point, they have no leads?
No leads as of yet.
So no cameras on the outside of the store?
There was no cameras on the outside, only the camera on the inside. And the camera on the inside was basically like they had 4 cameras pointing in 4 different directions in the store.
Yeah.
So it was kind of like across, like 2 pictures up and 2 pictures down. And we're going to come up to that here pretty soon about the different efforts that they take to try to those images and stuff.
Would have been nice if they would have had cameras on the outside,
Right.
Try to get a make on a vehicle.
Right. Well, and we'll put a pin in that too, because we do get a description of the vehicle of him as well. So amidst the challenges and the uncertainties, the community's unwavering support, symbolized by ribbons, buttons, and countless hours of searching, became a testament to the power of hope, unity, and love. As they faced each day with determination, Katie's family and devoted search teams held on to their belief that their combined efforts would lead them to Katie. Despite their best efforts, police still wrestled with the challenge of deciphering the horribly grainy video. In an attempt to gain some clarity to the images, they brought the footage to a local casino, hoping that they could help them enhance the pictures some more. So they took those 4 individual images and they were hoping that if they could blow them up, they figured with the technology of the casino cameras that maybe they had something that could enhance them a little bit better, blow them up. Unfortunately, they ended up with 4 blown up images that still did not.
Sure, they're still pixelated.
Right. They did not give any insight to the identity of the person captured on camera.
So probably a better pick would have been more like an engineer, where he could have tried to remaster
Right.
the video.
So from the limited details they could discern, the police speculated that the individual could be white. That's how bad this video was. That he could be white based on his clothing and hairstyle. He appeared to be younger. However, his movements in the video led them to believe he might be older.
Well, that's not a contradiction, is it?
Well, they're saying that his appearance looks younger,
Right.
but the way he moves is older.
Yeah.
So again, that tells you how bad this video really was. It's crazy and frustrating. I mean, you have this guy on video taking her, but you can't get a clear image off of this video. I would be so frustrated as a parent. So Katie's family, although aware of the emotional toll it could take on them, they courageously agreed to review the tape in hopes of recognizing the man in question. Sadly, they too were unable to identify the individual shown in the grainy images. The frustration of the investigators and the anguish of Katie's family grew as the grainy video provided no definite answers. They were just searching for any leads that could shed a light on anything.
This unsolved?
No, this is not a cold case.
Okay.
As the police intensify their investigation, they started questioning individuals near the convenience store at the time of Katie's disappearance. Valuable information came forward from a woman working at the Subway restaurant in the same plaza.
Yeah, Subway.
So as I was describing earlier, the Subway was kind of connected to the convenience store.
Hopefully it wasn't Jared.
That's another case we should cover.
We should.
Wow.
That's a messed up one.
That is a very messed up one. Who would have ever thought?
That dude is crazy.
Yes. On
Wackadoodle.
he's a big wackadoodle. On the night Katie went missing, she recounted an encounter with a man who appeared to be intoxicated, asking to use the restroom. When she declined, he attempted to access the convenience store, but again was denied entry as she was in the process of closing up the store. So again, like I said, the store is connected, so there's like a metal wall or metal door gate or whatever.
One of those gates.
Kind of like that they have like at malls and stuff that protect their windows. And
the one oddity with that story though is like typically a Subway wouldn't be closing after a gas station.
No, she was closing. The gas station was open 24 hours.
Okay.
So she was closing, I think it was around 9:30, 10 o'clock, somewhere in there. I can't remember the exact time, but I do think we cover that here too. So he was denied entry because the bathroom was within the gas station, but he couldn't get to it from the Subway.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Okay.
Yeah. So she was in the process of closing up the store. The Subway and Conoco were connected, and you could go from one to the other if the gate were not closed. But since she was closing, the gate was closed at that time.
Right. Makes sense.
Yep. Later, after finishing her closing routine, she went to say goodbye to Katie, as they often did. However, that night she had plans with her husband, so the farewell was brief. Little did she know that it would be the last time that she saw Katie.
So it was that guy, because he went out and over and into the gas station to use the restroom.
But this encounter happened, I believe, was around 9:30 in the evening, and he didn't go into the gas station until 11:30. So we will get to that, where they assume he goes for that couple hours. Normally, she would go and visit with Katie for a while, but she didn't that evening because she had plans with her husband. But as she left the gas station after saying goodbye to Katie, she noticed the same man from Subway standing at the end of the sidewalk. He engaged her in conversation. Feeling uneasy, she passed by him safely, got into her car. He also got into his truck and left. She followed him for some time, for they seemed to be going in the same direction, but she observed that he was driving erratically because, she assumed he seemed intoxicated. So having multiple encounters with him, she provided the police with a detailed description. The man was described as being in his 40s with blonde hair turning gray, and the length of his hair was about down to his collar. Police showed her the grainy video, but she could not confirm it was the same man captured on camera. Damn grainy footage. Additionally, she gave crucial details about his vehicle, that it was a black or dark-colored F-150 truck with distinctive lines painted on the side and an air gate on the back. She confirmed that the truck had Minnesota license plates, and she recalled 4 of the 6 digits, and also noticed that there was a slight bend in the upper right corner, which this woman is like a superhero for taking in and recalling.
Super sleuth.
Yes.
Who remembers all that stuff?
Well, and she does mention later on in the story, they had asked her how she recalled all this information. And she's basically said the guy was sketch as hell. So she just figured that she needed to take in as much information as she could just in case.
Right. Still impressive.
Yes, very impressive, because usually eyewitnesses are the worst witnesses because they all remember things differently.
Yeah, usually in group situations like
right.
that. But, in her case, I mean, if it wasn't for her, it sounds like this might have been an unsolved.
It definitely could have been. So with this valuable information, the police worked diligently to create a composite sketch and released it, along with the still images from the surveillance video, hoping that someone would recognize the man and provide further leads to the search for Katie. Unfortunately, the composite images that they did of this guy did not even look like him. So the composite images were not the greatest. And I'm saying that now, after the fact of knowing who it is.
What about the license plate, though? I mean, they had 4 out of the 6.
We're getting to that right now. You are on top of this. I love it. You're asking all the right questions. The police faced a daunting task as they combed the vehicle database trying to match the description of the black or dark-colored F-150 truck with the partial license plate information provided by the witness. Unfortunately, their search revealed that there were numerous trucks that fit that description, making it challenged to narrow down their focus. So again, they hit a little bit of a dead end again. With such a large pool of potential vehicles, the investigation became even more complex. The authorities realized that they needed additional leads and information to help them identify the specific truck belonging to the person of interest captured on the surveillance footage. The police received a tip and pursued the lead on a man named Donald Christensen.
I'm going to guess that he wasn't from Moose Lake then, because what's the population of Moose Lake? It's probably not that large.
2,200.
And then running the license plate numbers, it's probably not going to bring back that many names
in that area,
in that small town.
Right.
So,
and you got to remember the convenience store is right off of the freeway too.
Right. So, I mean, that could have been really daunting because it could have been a truck driver or somebody that's a delivery service.
Just
which
passing through.
Could have been, anywhere.
Right. Police received a tip and pursued a lead on a man named Donald Christensen. Considering his criminal history and resemblance to the man captured on the surveillance footage, when they questioned him, he denied any involvement in Katie's disappearance, although he admitted to drinking a lot more than usual lately. While searching his residence, they discovered a cable in his trash that was tied very similar to the rope seen in the grainy surveillance video. I mean, I'm sorry, you can't pick out the picture or what the guy looks like, but you're telling me
you can pick out
how the rope is tied?
Yeah, and
the way it looks? I'm sorry.
That's pretty amazing.
Yeah. Despite the challenging video quality, they managed to draw some similarities. The evidence raised suspicion for the police, and they needed to verify if Christensen was the man they were looking for. So with him cooperating with the investigation, Donald accompanied the police back to the convenience store. He retraced the path that Katie's abductor took and posed in all of the same positions seen on the footage. Though this comparison, they identified a critical discrepancy. Donald had a distinct spiderweb tattoo on his forearm, which the abductor did not have. Obviously, he's not the person that did this because of that tattoo.
Right.
But it's funny that he went through this whole thing, going through and posing and doing all of this stuff voluntarily.
Well, if he didn't do it, I mean, I guess.
Right. But how much is this man drinking that he's like, oh, maybe I should do this because did I really do this?
Maybe I did do it.
Oh, my God.
Well, I mean, why even bring up the drinking thing unless you're like, did I do that?
I have been drinking a lot more than I don't, normally do. Hiccup.
Did I do that?
Did I do that?
You did that so good.
Urkel.
Urkel.
With this discovery, the police were able to eliminate Donald Christensen as a suspect in Katie's disappearance.
But
Who
is it?
It's coming. It's coming.
I mean,
Dun, 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 dun.
ba-da-da-da. Okay.
The investigation continued, and the authorities remained unwavering in their commitment to finding the person responsible for this heinous act. The search for Katie, the pursuit of justice, and the hope of reuniting her with her family persisted, even as the challenges and uncertainties grew.
That would have to kind of suck, though, to find this guy. He's similar in some ways, certain things.
Right.
And then you figure out that, nope, he ain't it.
We're back to
square one.
Yep. I couldn't imagine. I could not imagine the frustration on the parents' part, on the police department's part, all of it. But after ruling out Donald Christensen, the police turned their attention to another potential suspect, also named Donald. His name was Donald Blom, who resided. He resided about 2 hours away from the convenience store in Richfield, Minnesota. They promptly contacted the Richfield police, who dispatched an officer to Donald Blom's residence.
So he would be the next.
He's the next
closest license plate number.
Yep. The officer spoke with Donald's wife and learned valuable information. She clarified that their truck was white, not black, contrary to what they were looking for in connection with Katie's disappearance. Additionally, she informed them that they had sold their black truck months ago, indicating that they had the wrong person in their sights. With this new knowledge, the police excluded Donald Blom from the list of suspects, acknowledging the importance of eliminating false leads and focusing on credible leads that could bring them closer to solving the case. So again, they're back to square one.
Yeah.
So the investigators now are seeking out the help of NASA in hopes to get a clearer image of that damn surveillance video.
Yeah, now if anybody could do it, it would probably be the NASA.
NASA struggled with this as well because this particular camera took, I'm trying to remember exactly, the images, it was like one image every 30 seconds or something like that, and they needed multiple images to be able to...
Right, so they would be better off with the actual video footage.
Right.
Versus an image, which...
Right, and they had the video footage.
Okay.
So they were trying to enhance the video footage, but...
The resolution.
Yes, but these cameras were so outdated, even at that point. The image rate that they took per minute or whatever was still... was still way less than what they could do. But they were able to get enough of a clear image to see that the suspect was wearing a New York Yankees jersey with the number 23 on the back. Although they couldn't get a sharp image of his face, they also were able to tell that he had an odd hair dye pattern, and their analysts suggested that the suspect was more likely in his 40s or 50s, not in his 20s or 30s as they initially thought. So they were able to get something out of this video. So now with this information, they decide to involve the public more in this search. The police collaborated with a baseball player, Paul Molitor. Is that how you say that? Okay. So they decided to reach out to Paul Molitor to have him record a message describing the suspect's appearance and what he was wearing and kind of everything that had happened, because they were thinking that if they used this approach of using a celebrity, that it would garner more attention of the public. And with airing this on all of the local stations, they received a significant lead. A man named Daryl Jarrow. Wow, that's a mouthful.
Daryl Gerald.
Well, that's kind of like, oh my gosh. That's
My brother Daryl, my other brother Daryl.
You know this already, but that's kind of funny because my dad is a twin and my dad's name is Gerald. His brother's name is Daryl, and my grandpa's name is Harold. But no, this guy his name is Daryl, and it's Gero. I think Gerald.
Gerald.
Yeah, Daryl. Gerald.
Carol, maybe.
Maybe that's a tongue twister. But he is an employee at Veterans Hall. Daryl reported that his coworker drove a black F-150 and frequently wore a jersey matching the one seen in the surveillance video. Furthermore, this coworker did not show up for work on the day that Katie disappeared, or the day after Katie disappeared.
Dun, dun, dun.
Ooh. So this lead provided a potential break in the case, and the investigators intensified their focus on the suspect, hoping to gather more evidence to confirm his involvement in Katie's disappearance. The public's involvement and cooperation played a crucial role in advancing this investigation, offering a glimmer of hope in the pursuit to bring Katie home safely. So the man in question...
So was there more to this Donald Blom?
Put a pin in it. We'll get to it.
Okay.
So this man in question, guess what his name is?
Donald Blom?
Donald Hutchinson. So we got Donald number 3 involved in this case. But Donald Hutchinson also used several aliases such as Donald Pence, Donald Franklin.
So it's the same guy.
And Donald Blom.
Oh.
Police discovered that he had prior charges of sexual assault and kidnapping, making him a person of interest in Katie's disappearance yet again. Given the leads about Blum, investigators looked into him yet again, especially since his wife was interviewed in Richfield previously about the case, which raised suspicion. Moreover, Blum changed his appearance by cutting his hair, trying to grow a beard after Katie went missing. He also abruptly quit his job without any notice, further intensifying the police's interest in him.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
Yeah. So with all of this new information, the police intensified their efforts to track down Donald Blum and gather sufficient evidence to link him to Katie's disappearance. So we're finally getting somewhere now.
Get him.
Get him. Police discovered a long record of crimes committed by Donald Blum against girls. In 1975, when he was in his 20s, he kidnapped a 14-year-old girl. He gagged her, raped her, and locked her in the trunk of his car. She escaped and turned him in. After the 1975 incident, he was convicted but not sentenced for a significant period. He was released in 1978.
So with this guy's background, I'm sure the cops researched him beforehand. They go to Richfield. They talk to him. They know that he was a previous felon, that he owned a black truck at one time. They just drop it right there. So, did he actually put the black truck's name into his alter ego's name?
The truck was under his name.
Okay, so the truck was still under his name.
Yep.
Yeah, I think somebody dropped the ball there because, all signs are pointing to him before the fact of him saying that he didn't have anything to do with it and then them dropping it.
Yeah, it kind of loops around here again. In 75, he kidnapped this 14-year-old girl. He was released sometime before 1978, so he didn't serve much time.
Right. They never do.
No, he committed aggravated assault in 78. And then in 1983, he faced another arrest, this time for sexual assault.
I mean, clearly a horrible dude.
In 83, he was arrested for sexual conduct.
Misconduct.
It just says sexual conduct. So it may be misconduct. Maybe it was a typo on my part. But in the same year, so he didn't even serve a year for that sexual misconduct.
Right.
In the same year, in 1983, he pulled a knife on 2 teenage girls, took them out to the middle of nowhere, tied them up to a tree, put socks in their mouth, gagged them, and he took one of the girls, choked her into unconsciousness, and revived her, and he did this over and over again while the other girl watched, all the while telling them that he was going to rape them. A police officer noticed the girl's car parked on the wrong side of the road and decided to investigate. When the officer approached them in the wood, Donald fled, attempting to evade capture. He then altered his appearance by dyeing his hair, but after 2 months, the authorities arrested him. One of the girls identified him while he was in custody, and a psychologist evaluated him, warning that if Donald wasn't closely monitored, he posed a serious threat to reoffending in the future.
They totally dropped the ball.
Oh, that's over and over and over.
He should have already
again.
been in prison for life.
Yes.
Prior to this 84 one.
So here's where we kind of tie Donald to Moose Lake. They discovered that Donald had a 20-acre property in Moose Lake, Minnesota, just 12 miles away from where Katie disappeared. Neighbors confirmed that he frequented the property, but hadn't been seen there since Katie's disappearance. Upon searching the property, they found a trailer home and hoping to find any sign of Katie being held captive, but they only discovered guns, which he wasn't allowed to have because he was a convicted felon.
Yeah.
In their search, they expanded throughout the property. They pumped out the water from the pond. They raked through the mud, and they even emptied the septic tank. As they were about to conclude the search, they stumbled upon a recently used fire pit. They hoped to find some of Katie's belongings or perhaps a murder weapon, but instead, they made a horrifying discovery: bone fragments and a single human tooth. They found a significant amount of bones. Basically, they described it as filling a third of an ice cream pail. So police sent the bones and tooth fragment to a forensic anthropologist for examination. The expert determined that most of the bones and fragments belonged to a petite young woman. She noticed that some of the bones still had traces of flesh on them, indicating that they were burnt with the flesh present. Shockingly, not all of the bones belonged to one person. It was clear that more than one individual had been burned in that fire pit. The discovery raised even more questions and intensified the urgency to find answers in the mysterious case of Katie's disappearance. So, multiple bones were found that belonged to multiple people.
Yeah, I can't say really at this point that it surprises me because this guy has been doing this for 20 years now.
Yeah.
And never being really punished for it. And if they would have just stopped him way back in, what was his first one, 79?
75, no.
78, something like that. I mean, they would have prevented all this.
Yeah, I think the first one was in 75, then 78. Yeah. So police conducted a search of Donald's home in Richfield, Minnesota, where they made another significant discovery: a black truck hidden in the family's garage. Shocker. Total. I mean,
that's the other thing too. Okay. So, we're talking about 1999. So,
right.
Internet was around, right?
Yeah, it was. Yeah.
So like linking him from the license plate to that truck, finding him in Richfield, should have also linked that he had a property in Moose Lake, trickling back to the notion that obviously he's been there.
Right. Well, I think the one thing that may have caused some hiccups in this is his multiple aliases.
Yeah, but again, his Moose Lake property was tied to Blom, though, right?
They tied it to him, but I don't know if it was tied to his name. It doesn't actually ever specify that it was tied to his name.
Oh, so
but they
it could have
found
been
out
maybe
that
in his wife's name.
could have been.
Okay.
And which we'll get to an interesting fact of his current last name here coming up too.
Current last name.
His current last name. Astonishingly, the truck had been concealed there throughout the entire 3.5 weeks that Katie had been missing. However, when the authorities arrived at the house, Donald, his wife, and their 2 children were nowhere to be found. And yes, this man reproduced those poor children. Thankfully, a tipster provided information that they were camping approximately 200 miles away. The police swiftly headed to the camping location and apprehended Donald around midnight. During their conversation, they once again questioned him about the truck. Donald maintained his claim that it had been sold. However, to the officer's surprise, he started making unsettling statements, asserting that they had the wrong person and he was not the one responsible for the abduction in Moose Lake. The officers were taken aback by this voluntary disclosure of information pertaining to the kidnapping that they weren't even questioning about at the time. They reiterated that their focus was solely on the truck, not the kidnapping, and subsequently...
So basically, he fucked up.
Yeah, big time. Big time. He had diarrhea of the mouth. So basically, they arrested...
Shit, I just implicated myself on everything.
But, he probably thinks, I've never been held accountable for anything I've done in my life.
Probably thinks he's going to get away with it.
So they did arrest him for the kidnapping of Katie. With Donald now in custody, the police proceed to conduct a lineup presenting him to the subway employee and another witness for identification. Donald promptly sought legal representation and they had concerns of him escaping. He was placed in solitary confinement to prevent him from trying to escape incarceration. So, however, a significant challenge arose in the investigation. The bone fragments and the tooth found in the fire pit yielded no DNA evidence. The intense heat and the prolonged burning had completely destroyed any trace of DNA, leaving them without any means to definitely identify the remains or prove Katie's death.
1899.
To overcome this obstacles, the investigators decided to consult with Katie's dentist. They had discovered that the tooth fragment was a molar, and the dentist revealed that she had recently filled the same molar with a new, yet-to-be-released filling material on Katie. That exact molar she had just put a filling in with a new technology of a material that she got at a conference that she had attended. This material was uncommon in the area, and only a few patients had received it. Among those, Katie was the only one that had gone missing. So they were able to identify her because of this filling that her dentist had done.
Right, the material in the filling.
Right, yes. So they tested the tooth fragment and confirmed the presence of the rare filling material, and it indeed was Katie's tooth, providing the crucial evidence that they needed to establish her identity and her tragic fate. Donald confessed, but he minimized what he did to Katie. He admitted to taking her from the convenience store, forcing her into his truck, and driving her to his hunting property where he immediately strangled her. However, he did not provide a clear motive for his actions, leaving investigators puzzled as to why he targeted Katie. During the confession, Donald seemed reluctant to reveal more about the time between the abduction and the murder, and he minimized his actions yet again. He claimed that Katie begged him to let her go, but she did not resist until they reached the hunting property. According to him, she tried to fight back and escape, but he eventually caught her, attacked her from behind, and strangled her. Donald stated that it took approximately 20 minutes for her to die, but he denied sexually assaulting her. I call bullshit.
Yeah, I call bullshit too.
I do not want this poor girl to have experienced that with this man's past.
Yeah, with his past. I mean,
Bullshit.
It's kind of a given.
Yeah, bullshit. And then 20 minutes for her to die. Oh, that is horrifying.
That's what
Heartbreaking.
That's what they tend to say about strangulation.
Yeah, that's not instant. Definitely not. However, given Donald's prior convictions for sexual assault and his disturbing history with violence against women, investigators remain skeptical about his claim of not sexually assaulting Katie. I completely concur to that. They believed he might be withholding or distorting the truth to protect himself from further charges or to manipulate the situation to his advantage. With Donald's confession and other evidence, including the identification of Katie's tooth, the case against him was building. His attorneys likely advised him to minimize his involvement to avoid additional incriminating statements. Nevertheless, law enforcement would continue to pursue the truth and seek justice for Katie and her grieving family. The police gathered enough evidence and obtained a confession from Donald confirming their worst fears about Katie's fate. They believed Donald had stalked the convenience store, ensuring that it was empty before he abducted her.
Clearly.
Yes.
Yeah.
The eyewitness accounts of the woman from Subway who followed him when he left the first time. This is where we're going to get to what you had said, why, he left or if he was still there during that time. They feel that when he left, he returned after changing his clothes. Then he staked out the store until the opportune moment to take Katie arose. So they think he went back home, changed his clothes into something else because the Subway employee might be able to recognize the clothes that he was wearing.
But wouldn't she have said that, though? Because, basically, when she left, she walked right past him.
Yep, and then she followed him.
Right.
Yeah, so that was around 9:30 in the evening. So he went back to the store around 11:30.
Oh, okay.
They assumed that he went home, changed his clothes, stalked the store, waited for the prime moment to go in and take Katie.
Yeah, and that's the thing. He could have just been waiting out there, waiting for it to get really slow or whatever.
A lull moment.
Yeah.
And he could have been in the parking lot, because he was only 12 miles away.
Yeah.
And we don't know for sure if he actually did go back. I don't know if they ever got for sure if he did change his clothes or not. It was just speculated that he did.
Yeah, and I suppose that makes sense. Obviously he left.
Right. She followed him.
Yeah. So, but yeah, I would assume probably he went back after that.
Yep.
Stalked the parking lot for a while.
Yep.
Waited for...
And I'm sure he was making sure there wasn't any other employees there.
Any other cars, waiting for it to slow down.
Right. Donald's version of the events were inconsistent and evasive, adding to the complexity of the investigation. He claimed to have put Katie's body in the fire pit, burning her with wood and paper. However, forensic experts determined that wood and paper alone would not have been enough to fully break down the body as they found it in the pit. During the questioning, Donald refused to provide a clear answer regarding whether he had burned only Katie's body or if there were others. He appeared vague and uncooperative, possibly trying to manipulate the situation further to his advantage. The police faced the difficult task of informing Katie's family that she was indeed gone. Despite Donald's arrest, they held on to the hope that she might still be alive. Sadly, hope was shattered when the police shared the grim news with the family, stating Donald had confessed to her abduction and murder. The family was devastated by the loss of their beloved Katie, and the community mourned along with them. As the trial began in June of 2000, the community was still grappling with the loss of Katie and the shocking details surrounding her abduction and murder. The maroon and gold ribbons served as a constant reminder of her memory. The support from the community helped the grieving family through their difficult times. During the trial, Donald attempted to recant his confession, claiming that the stress of solitary confinement and his medication influenced his previous admission. However, the district attorney stated that they had enough evidence to proceed with the trial regardless of his recantation. Over 50 witnesses were called to testify, and the surveillance video of the convenience store played a crucial role in the proceedings. I don't know how it was crucial because it was so bad. But additionally, the two women he had assaulted in 1983 testified against him, and their stories eerily mirrored what happened to Katie. Despite Donald's attempt to distance himself from his confession, it was presented as evidence against him. The trial weighed heavily on the family, who had to endure the painful process of reliving the events surrounding Katie's disappearance and death. The prosecution was determined to seek justice for Katie and hold Donald accountable for his actions. As the trial unfolded, the community followed every development closely, hoping for a just outcome to bring closure to this tragic case. The trial continued with crucial testimonies that further incriminated Donald. A forensic odontologist, like a tooth expert, I should have done that as a pronunciation, but a forensic tooth expert,
There you go.
words suck, confirmed that the tooth found in the fire pit belonged to Katie and was consistent with her age and gender. Donald's barber also testified that he had longer hair with blonde dyed tips.
Did you say tits?
No, tips. He had frosted tips.
Frosted tits. Good to know.
But shortly after Katie's disappearance, he had cut his hair. This aligned with the witness's description from the surveillance video. Donald continued denying his involvement, claiming that he had never...
40-year-old dude with frosted tips. Can you just imagine that? I mean, that's just odd to me.
That's such a high school...
I just picture Zach from Saved by the Bell,
Oh my God, yes.
but 40.
Well, and actually, I think he's in his 50s.
Oh, boy.
Yeah. So he continued denying his involvement, claiming he had never been at the convenience store, never met Katie, didn't own the New York Yankees jersey. However, his own brother testified that he had given Donald a box of clothes that included the jersey in question. So his own brother
Ratted him out.
called him out.
You know, and I've kind of been thinking, too, that I wonder if it was actually that random. You know, what if he seen Katie prior to this, another time that he went up to the cabin, planned all this out,
Oh, I'm sure.
knew he was going back up to the cabin.
Well, and his wife never went to that hunting property.
Yeah.
And I guess he spent a lot of time up there. And I'm sure he saw Katie multiple times.
Yeah.
And she was a beautiful, beautiful girl.
So,
And her mom, actually, in one of the shows that I watched, I think it was, Forensic Files. She actually was interviewed, and she said that when Katie told her that she got this job, she didn't want her to take it because she knew she was going to be on the outskirts of town. She was going to be out there by herself. She knew there'd be shady characters coming in off the freeway, but Katie told her, "Don't worry, I'll be okay."
yeah, I mean, it's dark up there, too, you know, I mean,
I worked at a gas station in my 20s, and I did the overnight shift by myself as well. Actually, I worked at a couple gas stations, one even closing at like 10 o'clock at night. I would be worried. I was kind of on the edge of town. And the other one, I was basically in the middle of town doing the overnight, and it was still scary. There was a railroad track right behind the gas station, and you just don't know what kind of shady characters are going to come in.
oh, yeah.
I mean,
you
I
don't
had-
know if you're going to get robbed or...
No, and then there was there was a roofing company that used to come every morning. They would all meet at the gas station early in the morning, and they would ride together to these jobs. And this one guy kept coming earlier and earlier every day. And he was creepy.
kind of stuck, yeah.
Yeah, he would just kind of hang around and talk to me. And then if I was busy, he'd kind of just hang out outside. And well, it just kind of really worried me. And a lot of the local police, again, we weren't too far from the police department where I worked, and they would come in because it was the only gas station open all night. And I mentioned it to one of them one day, and they had told me that he didn't have a driver's license. So they had asked if I ever seen him drive up by himself to let them know.
They wanted to bust him.
Right. So I did witness him driving up one day, and it ended up being a high-speed chase through town, and he hit a tree. He survived. He didn't die. But I was so mad because in the newspaper, they had put a Quick Trip employee called in that this person showed up with no license. And I'm like, they just called me out.
Yeah,
you
you always said, keep my name out of it. Don't tell anybody.
Right. Didn't give them my name, but they knew where I worked because I, told them that.
Well, yeah. I mean, obviously he's going to know who it was right away.
Yeah. So anyway, yeah. So I've had my own scary experiences working as a cashier at a gas station and being alone. And shortly after that, I think we started, and it was probably not too long after this case. I don't think that they allowed anybody to work overnights by themselves anymore, not shortly after this case. Anyway, getting back to the story, Donald's wife also took the stand and testified that he was home with her when Katie disappeared. She stated that they spent the evening together until they went to bed, and when she woke up, she found a fresh pot of coffee, confirming that he hadn't left during the night. She acknowledged her awareness of a missing girl and her husband's violent history, which motivated her to remember the details of that evening in case he became a suspect. I call bullshit.
Yeah. I mean, what does a pot of coffee have to do with anything?
Right? I mean, most
Ain't
of
that far away.
Well, and you can program those too. Even back in the 90s, you could program your coffee pot to brew a cup, a pot of coffee in the morning.
Alexa, make coffee.
Oh, I thought she was muted. Alexa, stop.
Sorry, folks. Alexa's wordy.
Alexa, mute. I thought I did that before we started recording.
Can't say that name in here.
So during the trial, Donald's wife testified and made some serious accusations against the police. She claimed that they had been shady in their tactics, and they threatened to take away her children if she didn't answer their questions in a certain way. These allegations added to the already tense and emotional atmosphere in the courtroom. So now she's trying to say the police are, trying to sway her, manipulate
the situation.
Again, words are hard. As she testified, Donald cried, which could have been seen as a display of his emotions and the stress he was under during the trial. However, emotions displayed during a trial don't necessarily indicate guilt or innocence, as people can react differently to high-pressure situations of a courtroom, or they could be fake as hell.
Could be, and he probably is.
Yes. Throughout the trial, the evidence against Donald continued to mount. The community hoped for a just verdict that would bring justice for Katie and her family. The testimonies and the evidence presented painted a clear picture of Donald's involvement in the abduction and the murder of Katie. During the trial, Donald's defense attorney did his best to create reasonable doubt in the minds of the jury. They pointed out that not all the witnesses had identified him in the lineup. They brought in their own forensic dentist to contradict the prosecution's expert testimony. They attempted to shift blame on a previous suspect who had already been ruled out by the police. That was the man that had the spider web tattoo. They tried to point it back at him. The defense aimed to challenge the credibility of Donald's confession, claiming it was coerced and under stress of solitary confinement. Donald took the stand in his defense, maintaining his innocence and denying any involvement in Katie's disappearance. He portrayed his confession as a desperate attempt to escape the harsh conditions of solitary confinement. Throughout his testimony, He tried to evoke sympathy from the jury, expressing how his life and his wife's life had been ruined by the case. You poor fucking baby. He even became visibly frustrated during his time on the stand, which lasted around 3.5 hours. He requested to make a statement at the end, but the judge declined his request.
Do you think the defense attorney believes that these people are actually innocent?
No.
How does one try to defend a person like this? I couldn't do it.
I couldn't do it either. It would take a special person.
If I thought they did it, man, I would just want them to go to where they belong.
Right. Yep.
But yet these guys fight and fight and fight in court to try to prove that he didn't do it.
Right.
Hey.
Yeah. I mean, that's got to be tough. That's got to be really tough.
It's got to take a special kind of person to defend a person like that.
Right. I would not be able to do it. I'd be like, dude, I'm taking you down.
I'm going on the other side.
They can't do that.
I mean, you know, it's that whole right to...
Right. And they could be disbarred if they intentionally tried to throw their client's case.
Yeah, but
which
I just couldn't do it. There'd be no way I could do that job.
Thank God I never went to law school. The trial was emotional and intense, as both the prosecution and the defense fought to present their versions of the events. The jury would have to weigh all of the evidence presented and come to a decision about Donald's guilt or innocence. During the trial, when the judge allowed Katie's family to address the court, emotions ran very high. Katie's mother, Sue, took the opportunity to confront Donald directly and express her grief, anger, and frustration. Her emotional outpouring was so intense that the defense attorney objected, claiming it was improper. However, Sue was determined to speak her mind and insisted on her right to express herself. During the emotionally charged moment in the trial, Katie's mother, Sue, confronted Donald Blom, who was 15 feet away from her. As she clenched the podium and leaned over towards Blum, she said, "Get a good look at me. I want my face in your dreams forever."
Yeah.
Go, Sue.
Go, Sue.
Sue expressing her pain and anger. She wanted to leave a mark on Blom's psyche, his conscience.
Lasting impression.
Yes, for the monstrous crime he was accused of committing against her daughter. In response, Blom defiantly shouted back, "You got the wrong fucking guy," denying any involvement in the abduction and murder of Katie. Somebody needs to stuff a sock in his mouth, tie him to a tree.
Tie a yellow ribbon. Tie a yellow Blum against an old oak tree.
The situation escalated to the point where a 40-minute recess was called to allow everyone to cool down and regain their composure. Such moments in the trial can be extremely tense and emotional, especially when the family members of the victim are given a chance to confront the accused directly. After being found guilty of the heinous crimes against Katie and receiving, finally, a life sentence,
about time,
Donald addressed Katie's family in court. He should not have been allowed to do this, but he expressed a semblance of remorse, stating that he had respect for them and felt sorry for their loss that they had suffered. He also vaguely alluded to the possibility that someday more information may come to light.
Yeah, but it ain't going to help you. You're guilty.
You are guilty as shit. However, despite his words, the pain and devastation caused by his actions were irreparable. Katie's family had to face the unimaginable tragedy of losing their loved one in such a horrifying manner. His expression of remorse would never bring Katie back or alleviate the profound grief that they experienced.
I don't know how you could really call that remorse.
It wasn't remorse. It was a cop-out.
Yeah, I mean...
It wasn't me.
When he's saying, "Oh, sorry for what happened, but yet hopefully you find the right guy."
Right. There wasn't any remorse.
Bullshit.
Yeah. In the end, justice was served, and Donald Blom received a life sentence with an additional 19 years for the guns found at his Moose Lake location.
Now keep his ass there.
Yes. The court's decision ensured that he would be held accountable for his actions and he would never pose a threat to society again.
Amen.
The emotions surrounding the verdict were overwhelming for Katie's family. Her brother, filled with relief and happiness, said that he just wanted to embrace everyone in that moment. Her brother, Patrick, now has 4 children of his own, and he says that each one of them has a trait of Katie, and they remind him of her all the time. Patrick also said that Donald killed her body, but not her soul. Katie's mother expressed satisfaction with the verdict, recognizing Donald as an evil person and acknowledging that the verdict meant that one more dangerous individual was off the streets, helping protect others from potential harm. However, amidst the relief, she couldn't escape the painful reality that Katie would never return home. The loss of their beloved daughter was a permanent void in their lives. The impact of Katie's tragic fate would forever shape and affect their family, leaving them with mixed emotions even in the face of justice. They found strength in holding on to her memory and continuing to honor Katie's life in their hearts. Donald requested an appeal because his confession was used against him, even though he recanted it. Donald's appeal, however, thank God, was not successful, and his conviction was upheld. During the appeal process, his own wife turned against him, revealing that she had sustained years of physical abuse and that was endured at his hands. She stated that he had lied about his identity. He hid his previous marriages from her and was manipulating her by taking his last name to conceal his true intentions.
Yeah, but yet she was protecting him.
Right. But she's saying she did it because she was the fear.
And she
of
probably was, but, in the same sense, I mean, the sympathy thing is a little
no sympathy
lacking.
No, right. But that's how he got his last identity. When they got married, he took her last name, and she thought it was because he loved her, and
no, he just wanted to kill people.
New identity. Yeah.
I'm a brand new man.
Right. So she believed that he was responsible for Katie's murder and potentially others as well, which obviously because they found other bones in that fire pit.
Yeah.
In response to Katie's tragic case and realizing the danger posed by repeat sex offenders, Minnesota finally took action to tighten the laws. They implemented Katie's Law, making it mandatory for longer sentences for repeated sex offenders, aiming to protect the community from individuals like Donald.
So do you think his wife knew more than what she told, or do you think she was just that clueless?
I think she was, I would hope she was just that clueless. Because
makes me wonder when she says more,
Well,
she knew what kind of man he was.
Right.
But
we obviously know there's more because of the bones, and we're going to get to a couple cases that he is also suspected, or he was actually being looked into as well, of a couple other missing people. But I know that he never allowed her to go to that property. He always went there by himself. I'm sorry, we're married, and if you're disappearing to a property all the time and never allowing me to come with you.
Every night,
where are you going?
Edina.
Well, that's for work. This guy is just...
But you can come with me if you want to.
Well, exactly. But he didn't let her go there. That was like his
right, that was his wackadoo place.
Yes.
Yeah.
The legacy of Katie's story sparked change and legislation, but the pain and loss her family endured would remain with them forever. In 2006, Donald expressed a desire to provide information on additional unsolved crimes, murders, and disappearances.
Let me guess, he wants something.
Yes. He made a condition that he would only disclose the information if he could be transferred to a prison closer to his relatives. Law enforcement agreed to this arrangement, hoping to solve long-standing cold cases with his cooperation.
Yeah, I guess. Why not? I mean,
Yeah.
he ain't asking for that much, and they're going to get something out of it. So.
Right. So Detective Dennis, an experienced investigator in cold cases, believed that Donald had multiple victims and saw this as an opportunity to bring closure to all these cold cases. They were particularly focused on unsolved homicides dating back to the 1970s. Donald himself admitted frequently leaving for entire nights, using drugs and alcohol, and having no memory of where he had been or what he had done. I think that's a cop-out if you ask me.
Mm-hmm.
The police arrived with the transfer request in hand to the other prison. Donald talked continuously for 3 days. However, he did not confess to any additional crimes. Despite the setback, law enforcement maintained their belief that he may be responsible for other murders, keeping these cases open and actively investigating any potential leads or connections. It's not uncommon for serial killers or violent criminals to be linked with multiple crimes without being charged for them all. In the case of Donald Blom, he was connected to several other cases as a possible suspect, but the evidence just wasn't there enough to charge him for the crimes.
Why didn't they push him a little harder? I mean, they gave him what he wanted.
Well, I don't think they ever transferred him.
Oh, they didn't?
No, because he didn't give them any information. So one case that he was linked to was the murder of Holly Spangler, a 19-year-old architect from Wisconsin. Her body was found in a Minnesota park near where Donald lived at the time, but he was considered a strong suspect in her murder. However, without enough conclusive evidence, he could not be charged with the crime. And that state park they're talking about is the one I was trying to remember.
Is that in Richfield or?
No, it's up by Moose Lake. It's that something Cook State Park.
Okay.
You should see if you can find that because it's driving me crazy.
I will try.
He was also looked into for a strangulation murder of a woman named Wilma Johnson, whose body was found near the St. Paul Cathedral in 1983. Boy, in 83, Donald was a busy man. Donald Blom was considered a person of interest due to his criminal history and proximity to the crime scene. Blom admitted to being at the crime scene, but he denied being the one that killed her. So why the hell were you at the crime scene? Donald told police he may have killed a man near St. Paul's High Bridge, but he wasn't sure and a body was never found. Dennis, the cold case investigator, believed that Donald would go to his grave as a serial killer, suggesting that he may have been involved in other unsolved cases. Unfortunately, without any further evidence or confessions, some mysteries surrounding other potential victims may never be fully resolved. On January 10th, 2023, Donald Blom died in Minnesota Correctional Facility, Oak Park Heights, in Oak Park Heights, Minnesota, at the age of 73.
That's the best news I've heard since this story started.
Right?
So, yeah, I'm not finding any reference to Cook in Moose Lake, so I'm not sure. I looked up Cook Parks and...
It's going to drive me nuts. I'll have to, if
yeah,
I figure it out,
I'm sure it'll pop into your mind
after we're done recording.
You'll go to sleep and, I know what it is!
Maybe I'm wrong, but I seriously thought there was something with that name. I'm pretty sure it was a state park.
Jay Cook?
Jay Cook, yes.
Jay Cook State Park.
It's Cooke, right?
Yep.
Yep. That's the park that the person was found at. Okay, so I wasn't crazy. Woohoo! Today. So we're going to end with a quote from Katie's obituary. Katie had a mile-wide smile and simply loved life and everyone in it. She will always be remembered, and she will always be a precious part of everyone who was fortunate enough to know her. So that is my case for today. It was a roller coaster ride. You had some great questions. I hope I did the case justice. There was so much information and so many things that are just so infuriating.
Yeah.
I mean, when I was typing this story up, I'm like slamming on the keyboard. I'm like, are you freaking kidding me? Why can't they do this? And I mean, technology that we have at this day and age is so different than what we had back in the late 90s, early 2000s still.
Yeah, the DNA evidence.
Oh, just the fact that she had just gone to the dentist and just had that molar, and that was the only molar. I mean, thank God. I mean, unfortunately, the poor girl perished, but they were able to identify her. They had closure to it.
Yeah, thank God for that.
So, do you have any announcements or anything for us today?
I don't think so. I was going to tell a joke, but I seem to have lost my joke.
Oh, no. Well, I
So-
will bring up the fact again. Anybody who uses Stitcher, don't forget, Stitcher is going away. And so you find your next favorite platform to listen on.
Yeah, maybe switch to Apple. And then while you're there at Apple, you can rate, review, and subscribe to our podcast.
That would help us immensely.
Immensely.
Or any podcast platform that you listen to on. Make sure you rate us, review us, give us, we hope for a 5-star
Your
rating.
likes, your thumbs ups,
Yes.
all that good stuff.
Because that will help us, move up in the rankings. And any help we can get, we greatly appreciate. And again, our Patreon is live. So go out and check out our Patreon. We have some pretty awesome perks out there. We've got a couple of videos out there for you guys to watch.
Couple of fun ones.
We'll be uploading some blooper reels. And, we'll just kind of keep building that as we go. All right. Do you have anything else for us today, Jeremy?
I think I am good.
All right. Well, we love you. Goodbye.
Bye. Smell you later. Thanks for hanging out with us here at Total Conundrum. Please make sure to check out our website and blog at totalconundrum.com for news, upcoming events, merch, bloopers, and additional hysteria. You never know what will pop up, so be sure to follow along. If you want to show your support for Total Conundrum and gain access to all of our bonus content, please visit our Patreon page. You can also follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. The links are available in our show notes. If you have any questions, comments, recommendations, or stories to share, please email us at contact@totalconundrum.com. Episodes are available on Apple Podcast, Google Podcast, Stitcher, Spotify, or wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts. If you like the show, please rate, review, and subscribe on Apple Podcasts. We appreciate the love. Keep on creeping on, mother cluckers.